Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to another extra special edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I have Jake Anderson joining me again today to talk about his favorite team, Roma. If you listened to our episode last week on Phoenix Rising, you may have heard the start of this discussion. And if you're familiar with our Team of the Month series, you know that we usually kind of have a supporter of a given club come on to the show, give us their background in following the team, some team history, what's going on with the team now, that type of thing. And then although Roma isn't our Team of the Month for this month, Jake really wanted to come on the show and talk about what's going on with the club right now, because I understand there's a bit of an ownership shakeup. I will get to that a bit later. But first, thank you for coming on the show, Jake, and welcome back to Across the Pitch.
Well, thank you so much for having me again, Phil. It's a lot of fun last time. I think it'll be this time too.
Well, awesome. And to start off with, tell us a bit about how you got to start supporting Roma and, when you started watching them and so on.
So AS Roma, or AS Roma, as they would say in Italy, is one of Rome's two clubs. They came into my life because where my grandparents are from in Italy is a small town in Giovinazzo, which it only has an indoor team that my cousin actually used to play for, but that's another thing. So the closest town or team there is Bari, and they aren't a top-tier team. So in Italy, it's north versus south, kind of like east versus west in the United States. So Rome is
very much like England then. So
exactly. So Rome is basically the farthest north of the south, if that makes sense.
Okay.
They're the last southern team that before the border, so to speak. So it's kind of like it was a cultural decision, I guess, that because my grandfather's hometown team, quote unquote, was never going to be in the top tier, Roma just kind of happened to be a team that he fell in love with for whatever reason. And that's kind of when I started watching him is because of my grandfather. And when I started watching soccer, it was the 2005 Liverpool AC Milan was the first game I can really remember. I was only 10. And then the 2006 World Cup, when Italy won, just that bond with my family, specifically my uncle and my grandfather, that kind of just resonated with me my entire life. And Francesco Totti, who some older people will know him, not so much the younger people these days, but he was Roma's catalyst forever. He literally is the captain. There's only one captain, solo un capitano is the saying. He's literally like a god in Rome. And so him, and then Daniele De Rossi, who I think Americans will remember in the 2006 World Cup. He gave a nice elbow to Brian McBride. He had a nice bloody face, and he actually.
I saw that there's 15 players that have won the World Cup while playing for Roma, going back all the way to the 1930s. So yeah, there's a lot of history there.
Oh, there's a ton of history just within Italy. It's a very Italian. They might not have the whole global reach historically. Other players that are from outside of Italy to play for them that might be known is Cafu played for Roma. Gabriel Batistuta, the Argentine, he was one of the biggest transfers for Roma in their club's history up until recently. With the figures are so high now, but yeah, Roma has a long history. They've been playing since 1927 in the Stadio Olimpico.
Is that? I believe that I heard that stadium is going to be replaced in the near future. Is that correct?
So the Stadio Olimpico actually belongs to the city of Rome. It is the Olympic stadium that when the Olympics were there, obviously, there's a track around the field, and Lazio shares the stadium with them right now. So Roma, when we will get into the whole ownership thing, but over the last 6 years, over the last decade, really have put out this plan that is now with this new ownership finally going to come to fruition. And they're going to get the Stadio della Roma, which is going to be built just for them. It's going to be theirs. It's going to be privatized. It's kind of the quote unquote, it's the step of being like a true underdog all the time. And it's that next step to commercialism. And it's going to be a different Roma for sure.
Lazio, like you said, they're the other team in Rome, and they're the major rivals. So what I'm understanding from what you're saying is that Lazio would be kind of like going back a few years. Lazio would be the United, and Roma would be the city, if you will, where Roma is kind of the team that has maybe a little bit less money and the kind of the underdog of the two, obviously, but before 2013, I'm talking.
Well, actually, in terms of historical success, Roma has always been the better side, at least from when I've been watching, and I know for a fact since at least the 80s. I mean, Roma was in the 84 final against Liverpool, and unfortunately they lost in penalties on their own pitch. Them and Bayern Munich are the only two teams to ever do that. But yeah, Roma is kind of the better team. It has more success historically, but it's not like there's a ton of success. So it's not yes, in a sense it's Man U and it's Man City. But I would say that Roma will be closer to Man U, but it's not like Roma has only won the league 3 times and Lazio's won it twice. And
okay, so
the thing that you go back and forth about is the last time Lazio won was 1999-2000, and then Roma won the next year, and they haven't won since. And it's like, well, Roma won it last, kind of thing. And that comes where Totti says Scudetto, which is the name of the Serie A trophy in Italian. 1 Scudetto in Roma is worth 10 in Milan or in Torino, which is where Juventus plays, because they have won 30.
So it sounds like it's really been a very competitive rivalry where it's just, one team wins and then the other team wins the next year kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. And Lazio was the better team this year. They go back and forth all the time. And it's a lot of the time one of the two teams, or not both of the teams, aren't even in the title race. So, that game becomes that much more important. And you just honestly root for the other team to fail just because you don't want to hear it. My experiences wearing a Roma shirt in Rome is I hear more from Lazio fans disapproving it than I do or see Roma fans approving it.
I was going to say, I've heard that's certainly when that derby happens, you don't want to end up in the wrong section at the wrong shirt.
Oh, yeah. It is played in broad daylight for safety reasons. About 5 years ago, there was like a 2-year stretch where someone died at each match, at least once in the year. Luckily, that hasn't been happening the last few years, but it has more, and I'm sure a lot of people like in the Turkish Super League, the Istanbul derby, there's a lot more than just the teams in it. It's the politics of the city and what they represent, and I don't want to go too much into it, but like the nickname of Lazio is Nazio, is as in Nazi.
I mean, I've heard some things kind of through the grapevine that especially in the Italian league, that there's a lot of, I guess, racism within the supporters groups and things like that.
It's well known, and it's a problem because you have players like Romelu Lukaku who play in Italy and are outspoken about it. And Southern Italy is worse than Northern Italy, in my opinion. But it's just even the crest of Lazio. If you look, if you look back to World War II emblems, it's a little similar.
We made kind of a commitment when we started the show to never talk about politics and only be about football, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, certainly, there's just certain things where it comes up, and especially in the times like we're having right now, it's certainly a forefront of the issue. And it's, I would say that one of the things that was an unpleasant surprise to me in starting to follow world soccer on a large scope is realizing how much racism isn't just an American problem, it's a world problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The throwing bananas at Danny Alves and monkey chants at Mario Balotelli, and you can go on and on for all the stories you've heard. And that's just the bigger clubs and the big games that we see and hear from.
Right.
You know, we know for a fact, being at Rising games, that you can very easily hear one heckler. So in these lower divisions all across the world, especially in countries that aren't going to have as many foreigners, they're going to have some hecklers that are pretty racist and pretty bad.
Well, let's talk about something a little bit more positive, because I mean that's really what we wanted to do today, is kind of talk about the positive history of Roma. And one of the things that we do with these type of episodes is, and I would fit into this category myself, and the fact that I don't have an Italian team that I've picked, so we kind of like to say, if I'm somebody that's starting to watch Serie A for the first time, why should I pick Roma as my club?
Well, we're not a plastic club. So right off the bat, you're not going to have anyone say, oh, you're a bandwagon for being a Roma fan. Because let me drop this little tidbit on you. Since winning the Scudetto in 2001, Roma has only won 3 trophies. And that's the Coppa Italia twice, which is the equivalent of the FA Cup.
Okay.
And then the Super Cup, which, whatever that's worth to you.
Is that like the Community Shield?
Yeah, the winner of the Coppa Italia and the winner of Serie A play each other. So it's just a one-off. And it's usually played in Asia.
Well,
So,
what I'll say is, if Arsenal beats Liverpool tomorrow, then the Community Shield is a very important trophy. If Liverpool wins, it doesn't mean shit.
but yes, it is the same exact trophy. Yeah, it's the same exact trophy. But to my point is, so the last time Roma won those was in 07-08, and they have finished since 00 and 01 season. They have finished in second place in some competition 17 times, and that is not a misquote, misprint, misfact. I've counted all of them. They've lost the Coppa Italia. I didn't get these specifics, but Coppa Italia X amount of second place finishes. In 2009-10, when Inter won the treble, Roma finished second, and they finished second in the Coppa Italia as well. In 2013-14, Roma won the first 10 games of the season, and they had a club record for 85 points in a season. But Juventus had a league record 102 points. The following year, Roma beat their record again, and this is actually with Rudy Garcia, Lyon's coach now. 87 points, but Juventus had 91 points and ended up losing the treble in Barcelona. Well, not in Barcelona, but against Barcelona in the Champions League. And Roma finished second a couple years ago as well. So it's just a bunch of bridesmaids, and they're never going to be their bride.
Well, I'll tell you, it sounds like maybe they should be the club for me, because Aaron Ayers isn't on here with us right now, but there's kind of a running joke with Aaron about how I always pick the team that finishes second in the World Cup in my bracket. It's like I think I picked 2010, I picked the Netherlands, and then last time I actually picked Belgium, but I said, well, they were really second technically anyway.
Yeah, they were to me, they were easily top 3. Easy. They were really good that year. That was fun to watch them.
Yeah, I mean the World Cup. So you mentioned the 2006 World Cup. Was that kind of the first World Cup that you watched that really got you into the game, or were you watching before that?
Honestly, if Italy doesn't win the World Cup, I don't know if I'm into soccer as much as I am. And I didn't understand what was happening in 2002 when my family was up in the middle of the night because it was in Japan and South Korea. So it didn't register to me. So I just remember my grandfather being really mad and, hitting the TV to turn it off. And now looking back, I see the game, and Totti got sent off for diving when in actuality he got fouled, and they ended up losing in extra time to the host. I understand his frustration now. But yeah, 2006, I remember every single match. Like I was obsessed with that tournament.
Incredible.
I don't know what it was. It took me. I fell in love with Gigi Buffon. I hadn't even started playing until then. And I became a keeper because of Buffon, honestly, because I was not in shape to run either. So that is just kind of how I fell in love with the game. Honestly, if Italy doesn't win, I don't know if I'm in love with soccer as much as I am.
It's so interesting because that 2006 World Cup, now I think I'm about 10, 15 years older than you are, but the 2006 World Cup was really the tournament that made me fall in love with soccer too. And I was actually on the other side of that final game because the two players that really caught my eye were Zinedine Zidane and Thierry Henry. And I just kind of started watching every France game. That was what got me into soccer, why I ended up becoming an Arsenal supporter, because then I followed Henry to Arsenal after that tournament. But it was just, I think you made a good point about how the games in that tournament, they weren't on in the middle of the night. You could kind of watch them in the daytime. And I think that also with the way that it was broadcast over here, I think it maybe been the first time that every World Cup game was on ESPN for the whole tournament. And I really think that at that tournament, it really played a large part in opening a lot of American sports fans up to soccer.
And honestly, like, I don't know how it was before that because that's when I started watching. So if it was harder to watch the World Cup before then, I apologize for you guys having to go through that. I got lucky to be born at the right time, I guess, or just started paying attention at the right time, I guess. I don't know. I remember that tournament. Eric Winaldo was on the ESPN's panel, and he kept picking against Italy every game. Italy wasn't expected to do what they did, and they almost always win when they're not expected to. But I always remember that. And that's why I always remember Eric Winaldo.
Of course, he went on to do a stint with Las Vegas Lights.
Yeah, there we go.
I know the main thing that we had kind of marked down was our main topic was the ownership situation. So let's talk about that a bit. What's going on with the Roma ownership situation?
So Roma officially sold, and it's probably like 10 days ago now. It was last Monday. James Pallotta was the former owner now, and he bought the team in 2011. And James Pallotta was actually also part of the group that owns the Boston Celtics, but he actually just sold all of his shares there as well. I don't know if he's just retiring, calling it a day. I don't know what's going on with him. But the new owner, Dan Friedkin, is based out of Houston, and so it's another American. And his financial background is a lot more than
car companies I saw, like Toyota.
So yeah, he's well known from Toyota. He kind of basically owns Toyota in the United States, for lack of a better term, you know.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And then also he's very much into movies, so he like has financed or produced movies that include like Matt Damon and your director is Chris Nolan, who's done The Dark Knight and Inception and Interstellar and all those. So he also likes to fly planes. And the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because the big difference I'm noticing between the two owners is the previous owner was a self-made billionaire. So he's first generation wealth. Whereas the new ownership, this is second generation wealth. The father was a billionaire. And now Dan Friedkin is worth 4.1 billion and James Pallotta was worth 1 billion. So Roma has more cash influx now, obviously. But it's kind of funny because the new owners, they're very secretive, for lack of a better term. They haven't done a media appearance. They did a statement. There's basically a Roma group I'm a part of, and it's led by John Solano, who is part of the Coucholand podcast. He's written for Roma and ESPN. He's basically a really good source, and he knows all things Roma. That's pretty much where I get all my information from. Anyway, he basically is explaining this to us. So it's interesting that and we brought this up on the last time we spoke. Roma is now being taken off the Italian stock exchange, which means I'm going to get my shares bought out, which is unfortunate. But but not that I really had enough to make a difference or a say, but it was nice to
Right. It's just
have a
one of
little
those
something.
things that you might,
Exactly.
yeah. And it sounds like, I think one of the things that you hear a lot of the English leagues is that a team kind of becomes a rich person toy, and then that rich person gets bored of the team, and things kind of go downhill. And it, from what you're describing to me, it sounds like there might be concern that this guy is one of those kind of situations.
So actually, what was the nice thing is the one statement that they actually came out with was that they have a long haul plan for what they're doing, not just quick injections of stimulus. And that was basically a shot at the previous owner, at the way he operated things. The most glaring thing I can think of is in 2014, there was the announcement that the Stadio della Roma was going to be built in time for Totti to retire, and they have not yet started. So in that time, he got a $250 million loan from Goldman Sachs. Well, 5 years has passed, and you didn't make any money off that privatized stadium because you haven't even started building. And so now you're in debt, and that debt affected, James Piloto specifically, and then it affected the purchase price. And basically, the team, it was so financially in disarray that it sounds like this first year, especially because the transfer market is happening right now and the season starts in like 3 weeks, that this next season might kind of just be like let's get our books right, and then we can start doing some stuff. Who knows if this is just a rich person's toy, like you said, but I mean, you make a $500 million investment. They took, and listen to this, these inklings first came, and like I said, the John Solano guy, inklings of this came out in December. They've had a meeting in March. Like, this thing was basically done before COVID, and the purchase price was much higher.
Oh,
but
wow.
they registered the parent company in February or January. So like this thing was going, but they took a total of 10 months to get this thing done, and they did their due diligence. So
Well, it
I'm
sounds
hoping,
like other than losing your shares, potentially it could be a good thing.
I'm hoping so. The only hope I have is I don't want to become a plastic club. Like I would love to be a Dortmund. That's what I want to be, a Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's one of those things where when a new owner comes in, there's just so many unknowns because there's, okay, this guy has enough money, but is he in it for the long haul? And then, is he the other thing you always have to worry about is the ownership going to be one of these guys that runs car dealerships and then thinks that means that he also knows how to pick out a left back, or if he's going to be a guy that lets football people do football things. Has there been any kind of anything that's come out that has led you to believe one way or another on that?
Yeah, so it is going to be Dan Friedkin, and he's the president. That's his title, but his son is going to be the one living in Rome. And this is a big thing in Italy. The previous owner, he did all of his dealings out of London, and he didn't go to Rome since Roma beat Barcelona in 2018. In 2019, he penned a letter, and he said he would be in Rome more often, and he never came back. So the son is going to be the one that is they call it a sporting director over there. They call it a GM here, but he's going to be working with some of the management that already exists. I don't know if they can speak Italian or not. Not that that's a big deal, but obviously, if you're going to be working in it, you need to have at least a translator or
Yeah.
someone else with you. But there's names of people that have already been there, and I'm hoping they can restore a relationship with Totti and De Rossi, because the previous ownership basically, got them out. And I don't want to bash on the previous owner because he did some great things. He got Roma to where they are now. He had left them in a lot better shape than he picked them up in 10 years ago. I mean, they didn't have Roma TV didn't exist. Roma Cares, which is a sponsor that has done a ton of work. I mean, they have, when they announce their dealings on transfers, they do at the same time missing kids, kind of like milk cartons do.
Oh,
And they actually found some kids because of it.
wow.
So Roma's done a ton of great work. Pallotta, he did a great job there, but they didn't even own their training facility. Now they own their training facility. Like, Roma was not in a good shape before Pallotta, he was, quote unquote, the right owner at the right time. And now he wants to take that next step and be, always in the Champions League and fighting, maybe like an Atletico Madrid or an Arsenal, a team that's not going to win all the time, but they're in it. And he doesn't have the finances for that because financial fair play has just gutted this team. And that's another thing. Like Man City only paid 12 million. And the previous owner said, if I knew the fine was only 12 million, I would have paid it. So, I mean, I honestly, like, I'm just going to pull up a quick little list. I call it the All Roma sold team. It's Alisson, Salah, Nangolan, Manolas, Rudiger, Pjanic, Marquinhos, Lamela, Benatia, Strootman, Romagnoli, Paredes, and Emerson. And in the last 4 Champions League finals, a former Roma player has been in the final. I mean, you saw Marquinhos. He was scoring left and right. Luis Enrique used to be Roma's manager. Pep Guardiola used to play for Roma. Claudio Ranieri, he's Roman, actually. Who else? Carlo Ancelotti used to play for them. I mean, there's a lot of history in Roma that people just don't know about because they just don't win. They just finish second.
Well, that would be a good place for us to kind of wrap up our Roma discussion. Where do you foresee Roma finishing in the table coming up this year? I know you said it's kind of a year to set the book straight, so I'm not thinking that you're thinking it's going to be a championship year, but do you think they can get up to second, or you think it's going to be more of a kind of a mid-table campaign?
So this season, definitely not going to challenge for the Scudetto. I don't think they'll finish second. They need to get in the top 4. They need to make Champions League is the bottom line. They finished 5th this previous season, and they need to finish 4th. I think that's where they'll aim to do. I don't know because the transfer window is moving right now as we speak, and it's just the beginning of it. So that I'll predict 4th or 5th. I'm hopeful of 4th. And realistically, I'll say 5th if the team is what I think it's going to be, unless they start making some moves. But one thing I do want to say is Monchi, who is Sevilla's sporting director. The story of current Roma can't be told without bringing up Monchi.
Okay.
So you understand Sevilla just won the Europa League, and they've won 6 of 6 in this millennium in the Europa League. But Monchi was their sporting director, and 3 years ago, he came over. I think it was 2018, and he was only with Roma for a couple years. I think it was 2017 to 2019, and we thought he was a guru, and everyone was excited about it. The moves he made were very questionable right from the get-go. You were unsure what was happening, the sales he was making, the purchases he was making. I mean, Javier Pastore is our second highest paid player, and he doesn't play. Those are just one of the big names. But so the reason why I bring that up is he actually was rumored to go to Arsenal when he stepped down. Now, he didn't get fired. He just quit. What happened is 3 months prior, the manager literally said he lost the locker room and that if he needed to step down, he would. And they waited 3 months to get knocked out of the Champions League. The keeper coaches were telling the manager, you need to switch out the keeper because he can't even say left or right in Italian. And I'm not even joking. And this isn't the second time. Martin Stecklenburg, the old Netherlands keeper, the same thing, couldn't say left or right in Italian when he played for Roma. And after the 3 months, they finally made the changes because the GM stepped down, the coach got fired or stepped down, the keeper got switched, and the defense started not allowing goals. It was actually quite ironic. And anyway, the last thing I'll say about Monchi is if you look at Sevilla's history, you'll see that they've won like 3 Europa Leagues in a row. Now, when you look at that, you go, oh, that's awesome. But let's think about this for a second. When you win the Europa League, you go to the Champions League. So how did they get back in Europa League? Well, you have to finish 3rd in your group. Exactly. So you don't do well in your group, and then you go back to Europa League. Now, credit to them. They're a great knockout fixture team. You think obviously they keep beating people. But this year was the first time in Sevilla's history since 09-10 that they finished in the top 4 in Spain, which means the only way they keep getting to the Champions League is because they keep winning Europa League. So my point is Sevilla is not a parallel to Roma because Monchi didn't have to worry about finishing in the top 4. Roma's expectations when he got hired were Roma's a top 4 team. and we might not challenge all the time, but we're going to be in the Champions League every year. And he completely failed at that. And when he went back to Sevilla, I think it showed that he wasn't able to handle his position or those expectations anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and that's so important because, I mean, that's really, if the team isn't making the Champions League on a regular basis and missing out on that money, it's going to be harder and harder to compete and get back into that top four.
Oh, and with financial fair play, and obviously some teams have to abide by it and some don't. Roma had to, and the generation of talent they sacrificed, honestly, it hurts. I mean, Liverpool, when they bought Salah, the old ownership paid for the tab because they thought they overpaid, and they only paid about 50 million. Now, the following year, they bought Alisson for 80 million. I think they kind of overpaid there, so it evened out, but still.
Yeah, I mean,
Liverpool had to pay Roma when they won.
So, what else did you have? Is there any part of Roma history that we didn't go over that you wanted to kind of go back to?
No, the modern day stuff, I think we got all the points. You just got to hit the two owners, what they did. Monchi, because he really, really screwed up the team really badly. I mean, it's a 5-year setback. I mean, they went 5 years of finishing second or third, and then right after Monchi started making some moves, they completely dipped. Some of them didn't make sense, and the replacements didn't make sense, and there were quote unquote favors being done for people, and I could go on and on about what he did. So I think the modern day stuff's good. I think the historical aspect was good. I think we got it all.
Well, excellent. I've enjoyed the chat, and I certainly know quite a bit more about Roma than I did before because, like I said, the Italian league honestly isn't one that I followed as closely as I probably should have. But I'm interested to keep an eye out on Roma now, and I appreciate your time today, Jake. And we'll definitely have to have you on again soon.
Oh yeah, thanks very much. I'll talk your ear off, especially if it has to do with Roma or Phoenix Rising.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to get you out to talk Phoenix Rising again, and maybe we already for September we have DeKalb County United is going to be our team of the month for September, but maybe down the road we could do a full scale team of the month on Roma with you.
Real quick, Roma's logo, by the way. For a history lesson for everyone. Yeah. That is Romulus and Remus sucking at the teat of the she-wolf. That's the legend of how Rome was founded. So for everyone who makes jokes about bear cubs sucking tits or whatever else people say, that's what it is. There's your history lesson for the day.
I didn't know what it was, but I'm glad you brought that up because I did have some questions, but that makes sense. I think that's a good way to wrap up, and thanks again, Jake, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, thanks you so much again, Phil.
Awesome. Thank you. Cheers.